Alright, welcome back to Honored Madman. I hope everybody's doing well. Today we're going to be talking about chaos. More specifically, the chaos demons that were created in Dark Souls 1 and what happened to them in between Dark Souls 1 and 3, as by the end of the trilogy they appear to have been driven to the brink of extinction. But first, what is a chaos demon? Now, there are many demons in the Dark Souls universe, but not all of them are chaos demons. For example, the crow demons of the Painted World appear to have no affiliation with their chaos brethren, and only really appear to share the name demon. These ones are thought to be servants of Velka, or at least associated with her in some way, but most of that connection wound up being cut content. Anyways, the crow demons themselves most likely evolved into the Corvians found in Dark Souls 3, so they aren't even really present in their original form. They were originally thought to be just, malformed humans who tried to become crows anyway. But more on that later. Now, there's also the Batwing Demons of Anor Londo. Now, these guys are explicitly referred to as Chaos Demons, but they're also said to be different than other Chaos Demons, in that their weapons are imbued with lightning instead of, Chaos Fire. That tells me that the gods basically got this group of demons to switch sides and fight for them, or maybe they enslaved the Batwing Demons. We know even by the events of Dark Souls 3 that they're still around in service to the gods, acting as stylish transport carriers. Now, aside from those small envoys, or the ferrymen of the gods as I like to refer to them, there were also the mysterious Titanite demons. Now, these demons don't appear to have really any affiliation with the gods per se. Well, any of the gods we know. They were supposedly crafted by the extremely obscure Smith god, and they were said to be born from the Titanite slabs. So to me it seems like this mysterious blacksmith god is what crafted the Titanite demons out of Titanite slabs. Makes perfect sense to me. It seems kind of self-explanatory. They don't appear to have any association with any of the other demons, and they only seem to just share the name. They also are associated with lightning magic, which again hints at how they were created by a god, perhaps. They ultimately seem more like sentient golems at the end of the day, but who knows? All I know is they're one of the more annoying enemies in Dark Souls 1, in my humblest of opinions. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. How were the Chaos Demons made? As many know, way back in the day, Gwyn and a few other legendary individuals acquired extremely powerful souls known as Lord Souls. One of these beings was the infamous Witch of Izalith, who would use her new power to build the city of Izalith. And eventually down the road, when the first flame began fading for the first time, the Witch of Izalith was one of the first to attempt to stop it, or in this case, replace it by creating a new first flame of her own using her power. And this did not go as she expected. It created something known as the Bed of Chaos, which consumed the Witch of Izalith and a good amount of her daughters and followers, and began spitting out the Chaos Demons. And sure, that's actually pretty cool. The Chaos Demons have dope-ass designs, but it wasn't just demons that the Bed of Chaos created. It also created the Chaos Eaters, these weird millipede things, crag spiders, the Chaos Bugs, all these different twisted monsters of various shapes and sizes. And the demons were just as diverse, if not more. You had the Taurus Demon, who looks sort of like the Balrog from MapleStory. There was the Centipede Demon, who looks like that one boss from Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. Various Pilgrim/Fire Sage demons who look like gluttons, one of whom wound up as a jailer of the Undead Asylum back in Dark Souls 1, the very first boss most of us face. And how could we forget the Capra demon, the precursor to the Omen Killer? Sure, this demon is really only intimidating when he's flanked by two vicious dogs, but he still has a great design. And the witch's surviving children were also mutated into horrific monsters. Look at the monster of ceaseless discharge, probably the reason the area is so filled with magma. That guy used to be her son. And let us not forget Quelaag, the Chaos Witch, and her sister, the Fair Lady. Yeah, they're hot spider chicks, but why did they manifest a whole spider as their lower half? Why did they change so differently than some of the other demons? I imagine, the motives and the reasons behind why chaos mutates and how it does what it does is meant to be, unknowable. It's like what Sovereign says in Mass Effect 2, or no, actually he says it in Mass Effect 1. When he says, our motives and goals are incomprehensible to mere mortals or whatever, but in a lot cooler of a way. Anyway, So Chaos Demons then roamed the land, and Gwyn had to do something about it, so he sent some of his Black Knights, armed with massive demon-killing weapons, to go, solve the problem. And I can imagine that demon war went on long after Gwyn and his little elite troop of knights went into the kiln of the first flame, as we see in Dark Souls 3 that the surviving Black Knights are still, waging war on demonkind. I mean, now they're just focusing on the grooves, but we'll get to that later. So Chaos Demons, they were pretty much all over the place in Dark Souls 1. There's the one I already mentioned at the Asylum. There's actually another one also that when you come back. There's the Taurus Demon, who I'm pretty sure is most people's second boss in the game on the bridge. There's the Capra Demon, which is most people's third boss. You see these guys pretty much everywhere in this game. I mean, especially when you get to the Demon Ruins and Lost Izalith, they're fucking everywhere. Oh yeah, and how could I forget the stone demons? I actually forgot they were considered demons. I thought they were supposed to be like statues that had been animated, but they sort of resemble a mini version of the Pilgrim Demon or the Asylum Demon. They don't really have arms though, and their only means of attack is to breathe fire at you, which is easily dodged. This is definitely a lesser demon if I've ever seen one. Now, ages later in Dark Souls 3, all of these Chaos Demons are pretty much gone. You can only find their corpses pretty much everywhere in the demon ruins found as part of the Smoldering Lake section of the game. And as you can see, the war did not go good for the demons. And sure, this could just be Black Knight handiwork. I mean, we still see remnants of their crusades against demonkind still, waging a war on those Gru. What few original Chaos Demons still remain are scattered across the map. And as far as I can tell, they aren't being actively hunted down by the surviving Black Knights that wander Lothric. It has us all wondering, what exactly happened to the demons? We know that the dying of the Chaos Flame isn't what killed them, so, what did? How is it that despite having the numerical advantage over the Black Knights, they still wound up near extinct by the events of Dark Souls 3? I mean, you can quite literally count the surviving demons in Dark Souls 3 on one hand, and that's including their king who barely has any of his flame left, and one demon who literally has no flame left. And the two that do have access to their flames look rather skinny, at least in comparison to the demons we saw back in Dark Souls 1. Although if I had to guess, judging by the length and amount of their horns, these demons are quite old. But this was ages later. What happened, in between? Well, somewhere in between the timelines of, Dark Souls 1 and 3 is Dark Souls 2, a game that definitely had its own unique take on demons, but it featured 0 chaos ones. Sure, a couple of them might have resembled what a chaos demon could look like, but we'll get to that. Now, the demons this game does feature are pretty cool. We've got demons like Jabba, or the Covetous Demon, and how he turned into this monstrosity is sort of a sad story. They say eating is an expression of desire, and this poor individual was hopelessly in love with the bent queen Mytha. But his affections would go unrequited, and he would eat and eat and eat as a form of coping with his desire until he eventually transformed into a covetous demon. Now there's also a white or albino one of these things found in Frozen Ilium Lois, who sort of acts as a part of the tricky invader Maldron's trap. So we don't actually know the origin of this covetous demon, but I think it's possible that he's me after getting rejected by Alsana. And that sort of explains his function in the game. I mean, he's become so bitter at, Ilium Lois in general, that he's helping an opportunist like Maldron rob any of the interlopers that happen to fall into their trap. 10 out of 10 character in my opinion, though. But anyway, there's also the Demon of Song, a very famous demon in the Dark Souls universe because of its alternate name, Seaman of Dong, or the infamous Foreskin Demon, who appears to be some type of being that had a taste for human flesh, so it was trapped in the Shrine of Amana, where it was presumably left offerings until all of the priestesses and priests that followed it died off, and now there's no one left to appease it. And it doesn't take rocket science to guess what probably happens when a cannibalistic giant frog isn't left human sacrifices anymore. He's gonna go try to find some more food. And it sort of has had a corrupting influence on the shrine itself, Aside from just eating people, it's also been afflicting the local Milfanito in a rather negative way, altering them rather visibly. Now, the Demon of Song doesn't explicitly have anything to do with chaos demons or anything like that, but its tongues are harvested and used by female chaos pyromancers of the Great Swamp. And since I feel this immense need to attempt to not leave out any demons, it's also worth mentioning that there is in fact one surviving crow demon from the painted world of Ariandel in Dark Souls 2, except she's not a monster, she's an NPC and a weaponsmith. Her name's Ornifex, and you probably already knew that. Now, I know those demons are sort of unrelated to chaos demons as a whole, but these next two bear a striking resemblance to, the average idea of what a chaos demon looks like. And I am, of course, referring to the Smelter demons and the old Iron King himself. So way back in the day, the old Iron King, who is a reincarnation of Gwyn, when he was building his kingdom, he acquired a lot of useful followers, people like Sir Elon, and the presumably bull-headed sorcerer, Egil. Now, Egil was an interesting individual. He sought to give fire a will of its own, and this of course resulted in various pyromancies like Flame Snake and Dance of Fire. However, it seems his scientific pursuits had some unwanted side effects. Or conversely, he was actually a demon in a not-so-subtle disguise and everything was in fact going to plan. I mean, he's got horns and almost all of his actions resulted in the creation of more demon-like beings, albeit more golem-esque than demon-esque, but they certainly looked a lot like demons. They even had it in their name. Namely the Smelter demons, who were basically just giant suits of armor that had been filled with a flame that had been given a life of its own. And in many ways they resemble some of the Chaos demons in Dark Souls 1, but they're meant to resemble Egil, who had what appeared to be a minotaur head. And from what I can tell, the blue one at Broom Tower appears to be the old Iron King's take, if you will, on the Smelter demon. I mean, he didn't have a will over fire, so he appears to have animated his hunk of iron with magic. Whereas the red one that had been animated by flame probably belonged to Egil. So whether intended or not, Egil's experiments likely led to the creation of Itcherous Earth. I mean, think about it. He was giving fire a will of its own, and he could take that fire and blast it onto some iron, turning the iron into magma. Now the iron has a sort of will of its own, and iron comes from the earth, so, Itcherous Earth. I know that's straight up the definition of cherry picking, but this is just sort of a tinfoil theory anyway. Now, it's also worth noting that that Smelter demon, the blue one, is in fact referred to as an aged Smelter demon, so perhaps it was created long before the red one. Now, that makes me wonder, if Egil did create the red one, then is he still out there somewhere? Who knows, but I mean, it wouldn't be a stretch. I mean, the whole Iron Keep is littered with statues and busts of the guy. I mean, there's that one giant Egil's idol just standing over the boss fight with the old Iron King, who himself has become very demon-like in appearance. I mean, come on, he looks exactly like that fire thing with a whip that Gandalf fought at the end of Lord of the Rings 1. Now, the old Iron King himself was reportedly killed by the Smelter demon, and afterwards his body was sort of subsumed and co-opted by the Itcherous Earth, which took on a very chaos demon-like appearance. Now, I wish I could expand more, but there really isn't much to say about Itcherous Earth. It's only mentioned a few times. But I think if I look at the story close enough, it looks like Egil was a demon who used the Iron King for his resources to attempt to recreate more of his kind after they'd been going extinct, which to me completely lines up with the state of the world right now. And the suspicious lack of demons, or at least chaos demons, in Dark Souls 2 can probably be traced back to the actions of one individual, but we'll get to him momentarily. So see, there's no shortage of demons in Dark Souls 2, but where is all the chaos? So in Dark Souls 2, a lot of the reincarnated Lord Soul type beings repeated the mistakes of their precursors, just in different ways. Now, the being that was reincarnated with the soul of the Fire Witch of Izalith was presumably a former priestess of Ilium Lois, as she was missing an eye, and somehow, someway, one of those little chaos bugs crawled up in there and, for lack of a better term, took control. Now, I imagine this chaos bug was left over from the previous cycle, but at the end of the day, the how and why don't matter for this video. I'll save that for another one. The Lost Sinner would do exactly what the Witch of Izalith did, create something known as the Old Chaos, in this case, buried deep beneath the frozen tundra of Ilium Lois. And the Old Chaos had the same look as the previous Chaos, flames, roots, magma. So if a Chaos exists, why no demons? Well, since this is Dark Souls, there really isn't a clear-cut answer, but I have a theory. And it has to do with this guy.
Let's meet the man.
We're here to kill chaos.
That's right, the old Ivory King. So this individual built a whole city and castle over the old chaos and a shrine at the mouth of it. And at this shrine he placed his wife, a child of the dark named Alsana, and had her use her powerful influence and magic to try and stave off the spread of this old chaos, or at least its corruptive aura. This, however, didn't ultimately work out, and the old Ivory King and his men descended into the old chaos, never to return. And when we, the player, go down there, we don't see any demons either. We just are met with the corrupted knights of the old Ivory King, and eventually the old Ivory King himself. So here's what I think happened. Him and all of his men, because they were badass Ferosan knights, went down there and killed all of the demons, all of the monstrosities that the old chaos was supposedly birthing that we never see. They killed them all. They won their fight. But then they were trapped. They had no way to escape, so they sort of just resigned themselves to their fate. I mean, the old Ivory King felt the degradation of the chaos on his very soul, and that's why he ultimately jumped into the chaos in the first place. So there they remained, eventually becoming the new servants of chaos on this cycle, as they had proved to the old chaos that they were far more formidable than the demons. I guess it's kind of like what happened to the Ruin Knights. They got made into the unwilling defenders of a place they didn't really want to serve, But that's why I think all the Chaos Demons are dead. There's been 2 crusades led by very powerful individuals against Chaos Demon kind. Sure, a few did manage to slip through the cracks, like the stray demon on the bridge who appears to have killed Havel. Although what's interesting about him is it appears he's so far away from whatever was left of the Chaos Flame that he's not even a flame anymore. He's just completely stone, like a giant version of one of those stone statue demons that spits fire, but instead of spitting fire, he spits rocks. And this shows us that the Chaos Demons can in fact exist without the flame, even after it's long been extinguished or turned into a profaned flame, so we can rule out the lack of a Chaos Flame as being the reason they all died out, and even then there's still a few demons that survive that manage to hang on to a little bit of their fire. For example, the one in the Undead Settlement, or the one underneath Wolnir, or the old Demon King who has just enough fire left for one more fight. And of course, how could we forget the twin demon princes who Lorien slew and whose fire forever stained his blade. They all managed to survive while the mass, almost entire population of the rest of the Chaos Demons eventually died off, with the exception of the Batwing Demons that turned their back on their own kind to serve the gods instead. But yeah, this video, it may have been kind of all over the place. It sort of turned into just me talking about all kinds of demons, but that's, how these things go. The main theory I have behind why all the Chaos Demons are dead by the events of Dark Souls 3 is that they were, for the most part, killed off by the old Ivory King and his followers before they were corrupted. Now, that doesn't mean he killed all of the demons in existence. We know that because some are still around by Dark Souls 3. He just killed most of them. And meanwhile, Gwyn's Black Knights, what few remain, are still fighting their own personal war against the demons. And I think all of these are contributing factors as to why the Chaos Demons are basically no more. However, the goat-like Gru people appear to be evolving into the new demons of the age. And these Gru in particular, these ones deep beneath the catacombs of Karthus in the smoldering lake, they appear to worship the demons in some way. We see them huddled around fallen demons, and some have appeared to have developed or mutated into these crow-like sorcerer demons. Now maybe the lingering embers and flames of all these dead demons had an effect on the Gru that delved too deep underneath Karthus, changing them in a similar manner to the way the old Chaos changed the old Ivory King and his followers into new servants of this flame that does in fact have a will of its own, this mysterious Chaos Flame that now only exists in a somewhat dwindled ember-like form. It's possible that by this stage in the game that the Chaos Flame itself only exists in those that it's corrupted, and that as long as there are beings that the Chaos Flame has corrupted, that it will continue to live on. It won't go away until all of the last bits of it have been eradicated. Now, whether the Black Knights know this or not, who knows, this is just a theory, but it sort of adds up for me. And whatever the case, the Chaos Demons are dying off from lack of a Chaos Flame to spawn new ones, and are slowly being replaced by the new Gru-like demons. There was still at least one of these Chaos guys that made it all the way to the end of the world, and set up shop in the ruins of the old Fireling Shrine from Dark Souls 1. And again, this is the very same demon that Prince Lorien fought, and he hit it so hard that it split into 2 separate demons. So I guess, yeah, now there's 2 of them down there. So yeah, they might be going extinct, but we know at least 1 or 2 of them make it all the way until the end of the world, so that's saying something for a dying race. Anyway, though, this is already disjointed enough, and I've probably rambled on for long enough, but as always, I hope you guys found this at least somewhat entertaining or informative or amusing. If you liked it, please like it. If you disliked it, please dislike it. And if you like hearing me ramble on, sometimes in a more disjointed fashion like this video, please consider subscribing. They're not all like this. Some of them are a little more organized, but without further ado, let's have our outro, shall we? And then a little bit more rambling, what I like to call the final thoughts. So yeah, I like to think that the old Ivory King had a lasting effect on the universe when he decided to jump into the flame head first. Anyways, though, that review video will probably be next. I'm going to try and have it done by tomorrow because I have most of the footage I need for it and everything. So if all goes to plan, it'll be done tomorrow, and then we've got our next lore video following that. Could be Zelda, could be Fallout, could be Elder Scrolls, and it could be, from Softian, like always. But as always, I can't thank you guys enough for the support you guys are always leaving me on all these videos. It's, honestly, I don't have the proper words to thank you guys, but, thank you. Anyways, though, until next time, be safe, and I will see ya.
The Knights of the Lame Voice await a new leader. One who will guide them into